Good evening, televiewers. You are welcome to this edition of Prime on my Media Prime. This evening, we are going to be looking at a very tricky topic that is going to be explored this evening by our panelists. We are asking the question whether there are persons who actually wins a war, and looking at what is happening in Cameroon, we are asking the question whether the war in the southwest and northwest region is winnable. Whoever is engaged in a war in these two regions, is that war winnable? If it is winnable, if it's not winnable, why waste efforts, time, and resources? We are discussing this with our panelists. Two of them are already. Madame Sally Mboumien, who is a very staunch peace crusader, woman advocate, and an entrepreneur, is standing by through Skype. She's going to be contributing from Mboumien, the Northwest Regional Capital. Good evening, Madam, and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo, and fellow viewers. Welcome to the slot. I'm happy to be here to contribute my own take on what it is, who wins and who will not win the ongoing war in the regions. I begin to wonder what this conversation will look like, because I've asked myself daily, after killing all these persons, who will really win the war? I look forward to an exciting interaction with sharing, so that we can together try to find out who will really win the ongoing war in the northwest and southwest regions.
With me in the studio here is Lucas Onji, active member of Cameroon Civil Society, all the way from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, televiewers. It's a pleasure to be here again to talk about issues which many find it very inciting, and some find it very wonderful, on horrible tables which they have prepared for themselves, thinking that within such a context they'll emerge a winner. Tonight, with time on our side, I think we shall be unveiling a whole lot, which we will have to ask ourselves: who is indeed the winner, who is indeed the loser, and the winner, what change would that winner make or cause within the triangles of Cameroon? And to the loser, why do you think if you lose, how would that affect the country positively, which perhaps could be the reason why you have decided to keep on perpetuating the evil and the horrors that the people of the Northwest and Southwest go through daily in Cameroon, which we are now faced with some of the spillover heading into the Western region, and we are equally getting issues of insecurity also in Mokolo, in Yaoundé. Perhaps you may want to ask yourself if that is the strategy which you think you are going to use to win this war. But bear in mind that in a war, there is no winner. The loser is the winner, because the loser is that person who will accept and say, it is time to build, it is time to forget about my ego, it is time to forget about the people. Bearing in mind, Mr. Leo, that nobody did a sample questionnaire to ascertain if the people would have loved to go into war, and because of that, you should understand that since there wasn't any questionnaire to ascertain if the people accepted the ongoing senseless killings in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, then you have to think better. But there is one thing, and there is strength. The strength is, if you think you are losing, if you think you are the loser, bear in mind that it is much better for you to lose, for the nation to move further, for the growth of the nation, and for yourself, because in every war, the casualties are not limited. Bear in mind, the casualties are not limited to a particular person or to a particular people. To you, that person who fights, you equally become a victim of the same war. So you may want to ask yourself, where do you want to belong? Is it on the side of the losers, in quote, who are in turn the most brave and the most preferred in every situation? Then you may want to ask yourself. Thank you very much, Mr. Leo.
Okay, we also have just been joined by Mr. Njumen, Raymond Njumen, all the way from Limbe. chieftain of Fako division. We also are happy to note that Limbe has a new senior divisional officer. Mr. Ngamba Emmanuel Ledoux has been appointed new senior divisional officer in the Center region. Okay. A new senior divisional officer is coming to Fako division, as well as Lebialem, a new one is going there. The person who was in Lebialem is moving to Kupe Mwanenguba. And the senior divisional officer for Manu is also moving. But we are glad to have you with us this evening.
Good evening, Leonard, and good evening to my co-panelists, and likewise the beautiful listeners of the African Eyes. Always a privilege to be on this platform in contributing ideas that can enable us to build a better community and likewise a better nation. Okay.
I'll start with you, Madam Sally. We're talking about who wins in wars. Who are actually winners of the different wars raging across the world? Can you unmute, Madam? Can you unmute your?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. We know from statistics and history that those who have won the war all over the world are those who sue for peace, are those who put humanity first. Because when violence comes, as in the case we are experiencing in the Northwest and Southwest, what do you qualify as victory? The number of corpses in the streets, the number of broken homes with people who have lost loved ones. Mental health is real in most families. I think for the ongoing crisis, those who will be the winners are those who are going to sue for peace. Those who are going to say, we have had enough. From my community, where I come from, there is an adage that if you want to end a war, do not count the corpses. Which means if you want to count corpses, you always have a reason to kill, to make sure you give a balance. Now the question is, what is the threshold? How many persons do
we have some connection.
It is therefore in our interest as a people. It is therefore in our interest as a people to know that whether it is the government or the non-state armed groups or all operating armed groups, nobody is going to win this current war. The only person that will win this war is the person who will move forward and say, I want a peaceful negotiation where we are going to have a sincere dialogue which is inclusive, void of pride and arrogance. Therefore, I challenge everybody. Nobody is going to win this war. We are only going to wipe out a generation, build an empire of hatred, and continue to wallow in pain. For human blood is not a lamb that is being sacrificed. It is a people that is being destroyed. The person that is going to win this war is that person that is going to sue for peace.
Okay, thank you, Madam Sally. Do you have memory of those who won wars?
So far, Mr. Leo, if you go back to history, you would see persons to have considered as winners of war. What is very remarkable is that at the end of it all, they were not winners because, like I did say, a couple of things that we shall be unveiling tonight, particularly myself, you will get to realize that some of the happenings in Europe, some of the happenings in America, some of the happenings in Russia, and most of the countries which consider themselves winners of previous wars is as a result of what they thought they did win. That's why I said that. If you think that you have to win a war, then you who consider yourself the loser of the war ends up becoming the victor. In the sense that the countries I listed thought that they won a war, and we have several issues which are playing with them. You have the highest, which is the mental health and the breaking down of their social fabric. And once these two things come to being, then forget about you being the winner, because at the end of the day, you must have beaten, in quote, your enemy, but what happens is that your children becomes your real enemy, in the sense that once a child finds it very difficult to sit up mentally, eventually you have no choice but to succumb to the poor or to the bad arms of what we call depression, to the bad arms of what we call poverty, to the bad arms of what we call the broken down of our social fabric, which is basically what most winners ended up with on the table of war or in a war front. Now, when we talk about issues of mental health, for those who did not know, it became very prominent in the US after several wars that it was time for the US Army to test persons before they send them to war, because at the end of the day, having had in quote victories on the war front, they came back, and the next time the US was about to go to a certain war where they needed to recruit persons, they could never have them because their young persons were now into drugs, their young persons were suffering from mental health, which led them into depression, and after that there was high rate of suicide. And today we can clearly see what is happening in the United States of America, where they had won a war, in Europe where they had won a war, and at the end of the day they became more confused because they said they had won a war and it was good. Let me take the case of the US, where they have their terrible gun laws, so to say, in the sense that there is no reason for you to carry an arm or arms and put in the hands of somebody who is not legitimate to carry that arm within the framework of a particular country. You will simply be creating more enemies. So for the fact that the US has what they call the gun law, where everybody is expected to carry gun because they think that it is good for the people, that is to tell you that they never fought and won any war. They are still in war. So what is most important for the viewers and for the warring parties, especially the warring parties, because when we talk about the warring parties, we shouldn't forget that what is happening on the ground was the consistent mismanagement of an ideology which others could not actually outsmart that ideology and felt like it was time to pick up arms. Be it from Camp A or Camp B, be it from the regular state forces or from the non-state armed groups, all what we need is to accept that there is no winner at the war front. So it is very clear, Mr. Leo, nobody wins a war to live in peace. The loser of any war lives in relative peace than most of these guys. Let me take the case of Germany. If you go to look at the suicide or the rate of suicides, and you go to look at the rate of terrorism in Germany, who ended up as the loser of the Second World War, the other countries whom we know as are the winners of this said war have higher rate of suicides, depression, and terrorism. What is causing that? It is the ghost that is haunting them, because at one point in time, these are the things you end up with. So if you think you are going to be a winner in a war front, bear in mind that you will never be a winner, in the sense that you shall live to fight, and the worst thing is that you'll be fighting but yourself. So nobody had victory in a war and is living in peace. Losers in the war are relatively better. Okay. Let me take the case of Africa just to conclude. Thank you. Africa, whom we all know was subdued to an extent, they understand that we accepted peace, and all the West could do in most of the African countries is to create horrible groups that will come to destabilize Africa. But generally, Africans are good people, because Africans did lose in that war.
Mr. Raymond, when we talk of wars, when you engage in a war, do you hope to win that war, and who are you winning against? For who?
You see, Mr. Leonard, the mentality of having wars across the world is an aspect of individuals wanting to dominate others. And it's just simply an indication of the fact that these individuals don't have a serene atmosphere within their hearts. And as such, they're looking for another opportunity to have some people that they have control over. Because the wars we have around the world are simply byproducts of the wars we have within. And it has to take two to agree to get into a war. And as many people that we've had over the years and nations involved in war, we realized that the world had to understand that nobody wins in a war. That was why the United Nations is a product of war. And why did the United Nations become a product of war? Because people sat and realized that instead of us killing ourselves, one another, killing each other, there is a need for us to dialogue. And so if we have the United Nations today in the world, is to tell everyone who cares to know that wars are not good and that it is preferable to dialogue. So nobody wins, because at the end of the day, the only person who has succeeded to win any war is the war that you win against yourself. That is to say, you are able to overcome your greed. You are able to overcome your desire to dominate others. The day you overcome that, you have won the best war against self, and that will enable you inevitably to be able to give others the opportunity to win the war against themselves, so that you negate the mentality of thinking that you have right and you have a responsibility or dominion over others. Because one of the things, Mr. Leo, we need to understand, and I'll tell our viewers, is that every year or every particular month, we have the world celebrating human rights. And while we celebrate human rights, I wish we could make every day a day of human obligations. Because when we understand that each human being has rights and obligations, when we begin to make it a duty to celebrate each day as a day for you to do what is needful for you, we'll be able not only to restrict and limit wars in our environment, limit wars within us likewise, but we'll be able to create a serene atmosphere where the world will be void of wars. Nobody apparently wins, because at the end of the day, if we don't stop the wars will actually stop us. Because history has it in records that during war times, parents actually bury their children, but during times of peace, children bury their parents. So at the end of the day, when you get engaged in war, you are actually losing one, you are wasting resources that are meant for the development of your people. Two, you are wasting human life, because the young men and women that you send out there to go and fight the war for you in the context of defending your own personal greed or aspirations end up dying, leaving behind wives who in court, what state governments do is they say, oh, you died in active service, so you are a hero. And you become a hero not dying for a just cause. You become a hero dying for the greed of an individual or an elitist class that thinks that their own ideas must be able to dominate others. So at the end of the day, Mr. Leo, truth be told, nobody wins in a war, because at the end of the day, no matter the objective you set for yourself, you have casualties at both ends.
Okay. We are looking at wars, winners of wars. Politicians, those who are engaging in wars, Madam Sally, are they not winners, because their agenda is pushed through these wars? The gun merchants, not winners of wars?
To me, war is an economy of a greedy few who start at a particular level and make all the money they can make from selling arms and from the disorder and the lawlessness of communities when there is a war. I will not say politicians really win from war. Wars stem from political ideologies, I agree, like the current crisis we have. But in the process of fighting this war, other interests do come in that no longer align with any of the political ideologies that are existing within the context of that war. I will say that wars make politicians who are genuine to their people to have a divided face, loyalty to the cause that they stand for, and their responsibility to the people that they represent. They can never, in any way, win the war. That is why you see, in our present context, like in the Northwest and Southwest, there is a lot of fighting being done with propaganda, struggling to paint the other black and making the other person the bad guy and you looking good. Because it is the
Okay, we're going to be coming back to Madam Sally. I don't know whether you followed up with the question I asked. There are persons who have vested interests which are fulfilled through wars. I'm talking about those who are engaging.
Yes.
in wars, and also third parties. Yes, third parties who use it to make so much money.
Yes, it would appear as though they did make some gains, because some people tend to look at gains to, in this case, you know, when we are talking about the breaking down of the social fabric, once a society is broken down, these persons are not alien to as such. They too live within the same society. That's why I introduced by saying that they have families and friends, and at the end of the day, their families and friends may be living in what you call affluence, and they are not safe, because the same people tend to be high fences. The same people have limited safety in terms of what they understand better, because these are the same people that will move around with other bodyguards and the rest. Now, if you said you did win a war because you now have, perhaps you were vying in for a particular political post and you got to, let me take the case of politicians, or you were going in for a particular post and you got it, you may want to assume that at the end of the day, yes, I have won because of this war, I now have this. And maybe you are the manufacturer of the MR24 or the AK-47 or whatever armory which is being used in the course of a war, and you think that because your account could now receive more, it means you have won. No, you have not. You have not, in the sense that when you put these things together, one thing is going to come back to you. You want to ask yourself, how peaceful are you? Mr. Leo, some of us move freely, like my brother who is coming from Limbe and myself from Boya. You did not see us here with any bodyguard. But if you say you are winning a war, you have persons around you. We have seen most cases where the non-state armed groups, they are different classes of their people. You find them with other persons who serve as their guards. And they'll tell you that we did win a battle in County A or in County B. Likewise, you see politicians that will tell you that everything is okay and we are winning and we are going to put order by this war. And you still find the same people, when they are coming, you see a whole battalion, you see an entire military base moves with them. Now, if they are winning, why would they be moving with this battalion or the military base? They are not winning. And because they are not winning, they are carrying this battalion and the military base. Likewise, the non-state armed groups, because they are not winning, you find them, they carry all sorts of fetish things on them. The same persons put on gun proofs and you say they are winning. Now, how are you winning when at the end of the day, you cannot have the kind of freedom we have? You cannot have the kind of freedom I have. So that is the aspect where I would say that if you think that you have won, then bear in mind that once the fabric is broken, the social fabric is broken. And when we talk about the brokenness of the social fabric, many things will come out of this. Most of our youths today you find into drugs, where the same politicians will get up daily to make other policies on how to contain them. These are the spoils of war. Mr. Leo, let me share with your viewers a sad situation that I received in the office last week of a 13-year-old girl, I think a 13-year-old child, who was caught in the web of the fault or the spoils of this crisis and got lured to get involved into child trafficking. She went as far as getting other children, thinking that she was going to trade these children off to make money. These are all the spoils of war. What is happening? The fabric is broken. Now, if you are that politician, where would you be? And you shouldn't forget that the same politicians will have to send their children to school. The same war merchants or maybe the war economists, they will have to send their children to schools. Whether you consider sending your child to a school out of the same republic where you are actually perpetrating all of this, bear in mind that your child has a mark which is unique. Your child must still be identified. So you are still gripped with fear. You are gripped with other things that will cause you to not have that comfort, which if you had accepted that you are a loser because you want peace, like Mama Sali says from the Northwest, then you have that comfort that we need. Because at the end of the day, anything that you win should give you happiness. And if you win a particular trophy and you are not happy, you cannot move freely, then you did not win that trophy. Something happened before you got that particular trophy.
Okay. In all of this, where is the interest of the population in a war?
You see, Leonard, the truth of the matter is the stakeholders that are engaged in the war economy actually have different interests. And like the current situation we find ourselves, it's important to note that victory that is attained through violence is momentary, it's not eternal. Because as far as wars are concerned, it is a concept of ideologies. And you actually don't use weapons that are meant to kill people in fighting wars of ideas. Now, when it has to do with the interest of the population, you will agree with me, Mr. Leo, that everybody claims, to say, I am defending the population. Like, for instance, the current crisis we find ourselves, you have the government saying, I'm defending the interests of the population. And of course, the non-state armed group, or the Amber Boys, which I classify them in two categories. You have the Amber Boys and the Amber Thieves, also claim that they're advocating for the population. But what we see on ground on a day-to-day basis is actually out of place. Mr. Leo, I've happened to have been taken to the bush.
Okay. You were kidnapped?
No, we were driving. We were driving from Kumba to Limbe, and a group of guys stopped our bus and took us to the bush. And what did they do? They extorted money from us. And I asked them, is this all about the struggle? I even received a slap. And I asked them, if you say you are advocating for us, how come you are now extorting from us? And that's what we see on a day-to-day basis. I've also had the opportunity to have been used as a human shield by the military. Still on the same stretch of road. Why? Because everybody is saying, I want to protect the population. And that's why I said the greatest war you will win is the war against self, where you should be able to put the priority and the interest of the population first. Now, you will agree with me, Mr. Leo, that a lot of people have become multi-millionaires for the past 6 years. We've been clamoring, oh, let the UN come, let the UN come, let the UN come. But you know what? The UN is in Cameroon. All the humanitarian agencies across the board is a representation of the UN. And what are they doing? Yeah. They're doing business. Yeah. Yeah. They are doing business, Mr. Leo. And what is the business? They get funds. They say they're coming to assist the common man. The common man receives peanuts. And at the end of the day, the money goes into their personal account. Mr. Leo, I can tell you NGOs, CEOs of NGOs who have built story buildings overnight for the past 6 years, who have erected structures. Why? Because the war is profiting them. Human beings are dying, and to them the interest is, as long as I can put together a project and then it is funded. So the world network is an economy where people find profit in. And that is why you're asking, what is the interest of the population? It's a call for concern for all the warmongers that we have across the border. Listen, human life is irreplaceable. And because human life is irreplaceable, we've got to take responsibility to value human lives. And one of the things I have said over the years is that you might say that, okay, the head of state has put in place what we call Operation Epevier, to put into the dragnets those who are corrupt and lock them up in prison. And I say it oftentimes while in Limbe, while doing programs, that if you escape the Epevier of President Pobia, the one of God, you will not be able to escape. Because human beings must have a mentality to know that we are not only responsible, but we must be held accountable. If we miss accountability while we are on earth, there comes a day that the creator of life, the creator of the heavens and the earth, will demand from us account of the authorities and the privileges we had while here on earth in order to improve human life or human conditions and how we abuse them. So the interest of the population is a function where people are supposed to be humane. People are supposed to have the population at heart better than their own interests. But unfortunately, we have realized that what is supposed to be the common wealth of the population have become family wealth for some people, have become personal wealth for some people. And it is a deficiency of morality at the level of leadership. Because any leadership that is void or have less supply of morality takes us to a kind of situation we find ourselves. Okay. And so when it comes to the aspect of war, nobody wins. And of course, war has never helped any community because resources are wasted, lives are wasted. Those that are supposed to be used as instruments for nation building
Okay.
Their lives are being wasted on a daily basis.
Okay, Madam Sally, you there now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, yes, we are looking at the interest of the common man in wars. Where do we place our common people of the Southwest and Northwest region in the war that is raging?
I want to think that there's honesty in the ranks of all our leaders, be it the government or the non-state actors. Because the common man is at the center of their discourse. We want to protect the vulnerable population. We want to take care, we want to liberate. These are the words they use. But the common man is not considered. Because when we have all these actions, they have setback on their businesses. Extortion, they pay for it. Adoption, they suffer. When these families are displaced, it is the common man that suffers. I want to say here that in the case of the Northwest and Southwest, the common man is treated like tissue paper. Irrespective of the different groups that have come together to voice the desire and aspirations of the common man, which all of these leaders claim to represent and protect, nothing has been done. I want to go practically to say, many groups have proposed how there should be a dialogue, how this dialogue should unfold, but this group seems not to listen. The common person suffers the effects of continuous violence because they have mental health issues, they have issues with just feeding even their basic families. There are families that have been disoriented. Members of the family have to either live in Douala to go to school, in different towns of the country to go to school. Now, when these political discourses are articulated, either we have strong speeches on social media, promising thunder and brimstone to other opponents, forgetting to understand that it is a common man that will pay. Let us take the incident that happened along the Bengue Road. It was the use of an improvised explosive device, but houses at Bengue Road were burnt down with impunity, with so many persons left homeless. Let's take the case of Manfe Hospital. The population around Manfe and its environment do not have good medical care. It is a common man that suffers because at the end of the day, those who push for war, these leaders are war barons. And it is an economy where they have money. They can afford medical care at any level. So if we look at war in terms of the social effect, it's the families of unarmed civilians that suffer because most people take their families into safe zones before they come shooting the guns around them. If we look at the economy, those who run the wars, the money changes hands. They have a lot of money to their credit. If you listen to thousands of dollars that are raised to fund the war, if you listen to the budget that is defended for the Ministry of Defense, it is the civilian population, I mean the unarmed civilian population that suffers. If you look at even the political discourse, let's go back to the national dialogue. When we have the measured national dialogue, a common man that gets the sounds of the guns was not even in the hall to talk about issues. So for me, the fate of the Northwest and Southwest hangs on the political will of those who are holding the guns to say, okay, these people have suffered enough. Let us come out and do the deed, which is to end the war. One of the panelists, when he was speaking, he even went ahead to elaborate the impact of the war even after we stopped the bombs. All of this analysis and more have been said to those in power. The interesting thing is, what are they doing? Are they listening to us? So it is a selfish deal of a handful of people who have access to guns and bullets, who believe that they can call the shots. Even sitting at this panel, speaking as panelists, we are not safe for saying the truth. Think of the civilian population. Leadership is about care. Leadership is about protection. Leadership is about security, which gives a sense of belonging to the people. It is time for those who claim that they represent us in the northwest and southwest. They represent us in southern Cameroon to project humanity and do what is right for the civilian population. It is the civilians that need to win this war because their losses are so many.
Okay. Now, I want you to actually show me how the civilians, the common man, has been aptly represented. 2016, almost everybody was talking in favor of the common man. How has the common man fared these 6 years?
Taking from 2016, we all watched it. We got it from social media. We equally got it when the internet was cut off from the northwest and southwest regions. We understood that the population was out for what they know is genuine, because they came out knowing that it is all about the Anglophone problem, which I will keep on articulating on that. We have an Anglophone problem in this country. It is highly documented by reputable professors. The government itself is aware that there is the Anglophone problem. Myself, I keep on talking about the death in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. That is the underdevelopment and the lack of social amenities which are supposed to be there, not on the basis of pleas that people will make or begs that people will have to put forth or motions of support. These are not things that people should negotiate for. I will still want to repeat that a government is put in place by the people, and the government is there by the people. So the government in principle is an employee to the people. Away from that, the common man thought that at a certain point in time, it was only nice to support that cry that had been there since 1960, especially the Anglophone. And by 2017, particularly when the heavy hand of the state forces set in, the invisible hand and the unconstitutional hand, which is that of the non-state armed group, actually was introduced. And that was the beginning of the suffering of the ordinary northwesterner and southwesterner of Cameroon. And this has actually caused the same persons to start vomiting or throwing out some of these persons within the same community. We can vividly recall that in 2017, we observed that a good number of persons supported those who were in the name of moving toward hoisting a particular flag. How they supported them, because at that moment, all what they saw was, it was still the revendication of the people. The people were still decrying of what is happening on the ground. Little did they know that the invisible hand had set in. And the common man, in this case, Mr. Leo, has no benefit. And this is where I am saying that if you were to look into this, to ask tough questions, like I did say, that no questionnaire was given to the people to get their opinion with regards to the aspect of the arm. But the support of the people, we all saw it when they came out on the streets, decrying that the things that were told by the lawyers and teachers with regards to who they are, which were quite pertinent and constitutional, they supported that. But the arm is not what the ordinary English Cameroonian went in for. And that is why, or this is why, you can clearly see from their actions, be it from Mamfe right down to the northwest region, where they have been caught in that dragnet of what they did not go in for, in the sense that whenever they think of making their voices heard, the repercussion is that their houses will be set ablaze by the non-state armed groups, or whenever they think of sitting silent, some excesses from the state forces you find within the communities where the people are dragged out of their houses, forced to say things that they do not know, or they are compelled to sit on places that are not pleasant to them. I suffered that in 2019, where I was asked to sit on the ground at the CBC school fee in my 16. Why? Because it was a general concern by the state forces to ensure that a proper X-ray be done in their rate to ascertain who is a member of the non-state armed groups, which of course at the end of the day, it wasn't still good in the sense that it also came in and had some seeds planted in the hearts of the people. But when we talk about where is the common man in all of this, the common man is making no gain in this, because this is not what the common man went in for. The common man knew that the Anglophone problem that is existing, because it has not been solved, which is existing, which part of it you could see it on the everyday cry of the Bamenda Babaju Road, the Ring Road, the Womb Road, and several roads within the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, and other institutions which they did decry. Like somebody said it, I think that was on the yesterday program, that if you went to certain schools which the people have decried before, that they should take off persons who do not have mastery, not that they don't have the requisite knowledge. But the difference is that with regards to the language which they are using to disseminate that information, to teach the people, they do not have the mastery of the language which we accepted. So it is unfortunate that the common man is still caught in between all of this. And this is where we are crying daily that nobody wins in the war, because this is the common man that is going to suffer all through, because the fabrics of the society is broken down. Mental health is setting in, depression is coming, economic crisis is coming in, illiteracy is on its rise, resulting from all of this. So I think that it is time for the warring parties and those who think that they are making so much from it to consider what kind of gain do they really want to make. Is it a gain that is going to be solved with people's blood, pain, suffering, agony, underdevelopment, illiteracy, or what? I will end there by asking the same persons to rethink. And if their answer is going to be yes, then I'll tell them openly that be losers of this war, because we want economic development. We want our children to go to school. We want our children to have a stable health. We want our children to stop suffering from malnutrition. We want our children to have the life that they had, though it was still a life that they were making cries on, because the best which they deserve is available, but it wasn't being given to them.
Okay, it was not given to them. The people, they were not consulted before engaging in a war. But how do we even win a war? Do we sit to count the cost before engaging in it, or we are moved into wars by our sentiment?
Leonard, it's very obvious, as I told you earlier, that what takes people into wars is greed.
Okay.
And like the scripture says in Amos 3:3, two cannot walk together unless they agree. While others try to impose their values on others, the current situation we find ourselves, which is this crisis, is a product of lies telling over the years. And if we have propagated lies over the years, it is high time we tell the truth to ourselves so that peace can be restored in this God-so-blessed country of Cameroon. Now, the common man's place, as far as this crisis is concerned, is the victim. Why is he the victim? Because every day, transport fare increases. Every day, you're not very secure in the environment you find yourself if you have to sleep, especially those who are in those areas that the war is intense. I remember the other day, a friend of mine called me and said, Raymond, I'm actually traveling to the village, and I asked him, what is wrong? Why are you traveling to the village? He said, my mother and father are dead. And I'm like, your mother and father dead? What happened? And this is the reason he gave. The non-state groups met the father, and the father said, I can't submit to you. And because I cannot submit to you, you people you said you are armed group, I will submit my allegiance to the chief of the community. And that alone raised anger among the non-state groups, and they killed the father. And since the mother was hypertensive, the mother also died along. And you know what happened, Leonard? They were buried without the two were buried without the children being aware. Now, I just want you to understand the impact that you sit at home somewhere, you're told your mom and dad are dead. It's okay, let me rush to find out. I told you by the time you come, they were buried. Do you imagine the trauma it will cause you throughout life? And these are the things that are happening to the common man. If you walk down the streets, for instance, you're here in Douala in Bonaberi, We find our young girls who have become IDPs becoming prostitutes overnight. You find people barely trying to survive. Why? Because those who claim that they are the leaders don't take into consideration their plight. And one of the things the general public should understand is that we call from the head of state to the maybe the civil administrator or head of department or chief of service that works in the public, and we call them civil servants, right? That's how we call them, civil servants. If we call them civil servants, who are the civil masters? If you are a civil servant, who is a civil master? This is a question I asked one of the administrators in Limbe. And I said, you are a civil servant, right? He said, yes. I said, who is a civil master? It took him a moment to answer me, and I told him, you may think your civil master is your senior authority in the same office, but I want to let you know, every citizen that walks into this office to be served each day is the master.
That's it. You said it all.
If that does not ring a bell in your head,
You said it all.
then you have not understood the responsibility of public service. And unfortunately, where we find ourselves, Mr. Leonard, imagine you having a company. You employ staff to work for you, and the staff tell you, boss, we will not do what you want us to do, and you cannot sack us. That is the situation we find ourselves in this country, where the common man has given a mandate and a responsibility to protect them for their welfare, for their economic development, for their social welfare, are telling the common man, we will not do what you want us to do, and there is nothing you can do about it. So the common man is caught in a fix, because at the end of the day, like we find ourselves in the Northwest and Southwest, those who have legal authority to carry weapons are the military, the police, or the gendarmes. Now, the non-state actors also have weapons. So at the end of the day, I remember, since we have normal country Sunday going on in the Northwest and Southwest, in some places, if you don't respect those days, the non-state groups will come after you. And of course, since you don't have weapons to defend yourself, you are compelled now to obey two authorities. You are compelled to obey the authorities that are the state authorities when it is convenient for them, and the non-state authorities when it is also convenient for them. So the common man is caught in between, and there is it is high time we tell ourselves that, hey, enough is enough. The common man has suffered enough. We have a nation to rebuild. We will definitely heal. We will definitely forgive. But it is important for us to know that this war, nobody can win it. Nobody is winning it. We are losing. The military that are dying on a daily or a weekly or monthly basis are, God bless, Cameroonians who are dying. The non-state actors that are being killed every day are Cameroonians that are dying. And Mr. Leonard, there is something very important we should take note. Do you know the Cameroon government has called the non-state actors terrorists? And that is the justification that they can be eliminated without any remorse. Do you know what the non-state actors also call the military? They call them La République terrorists. So everybody wants to look for a name that he can allude to his victim so that he does not have remorse for what he does. But every human life is important. And we should be able to know that human life is sacred. We cannot be doing business with human life and continue thinking that, oh, at the end of the day, some people will clap for us, will be promoted, will be rewarded. Let this war stop so that we can be able to build this God-so-blessed country and make it the land of promise and the land of glory.
Okay. Madam Sally, we are talking about wars and asking whether they are winnable, especially the case for the war going on in the Southwest and Northwest region. Can this war be won?
We are not going to create history because we say impossible is not Cameroonian. No, we are not going to create history because it's human life that is involved. This war cannot be won with this heavy-handed militarization, this issue of propaganda and the rest. We cannot win the war. We can only come together to find lasting solutions for sustainable peace and development. Where we are now, the war cannot be won by anybody, because if we follow the trend of conversation from the different parties since 2018, the discourse is we are either winning fatly or the situation is under control. And since we kept putting forth this discourse, we still find people dying in their numbers daily. There are different strategies that have been brought in by the different warring factions to prove that they have firepower, that they have control, and that they are winning. But all of this is counterproductive to human beings that constitute the population that guarantees the power and strength of any leadership. Are we saying this winning will be a situation where people have been killed and there is nobody left? We cannot be talking about victory when human life is being wasted. Like one of the panelists has already put forth, and I second that motion. The person who will win this war is the person who accepts that I have lost the war. And the only way to win the war is for each group to come forth and place humanity first. Because the moment they reinstate the value that we need to place on humanity, the dignity that civilians, unarmed civilians in these regions deserve, if we put ahead the well-being of these people, then we will say this is the time that we are winning the war. There is something that all of us have to agree. Whoever leads must give good governance to the people. Whoever leads must make sure that the people, the well-being of the people is safeguarded, that the economy is booming, that social amenities are available. Therefore, anybody winning this war is somebody that brings back this dignity to the people. The million-dollar question is, how can we get this when these guns continue smoking?
Yes.
I therefore challenge leaders that you who claim to represent us without any written mandate, you are using us as fools because you know that the road you are treading does not work for our goods. The statistics, the figures, the numbers are there to prove that all actions that are being taken now have a negative effect on the population. This is the time for people to go back to the drawing board and take feedback from the people they claim they are representing. Because if I am quoted rightly, for more than 2 years, everybody says the war is not good. The question is, who is then pushing the war forward? If we say the war is not good, then we have understood that there is no way we can win it. So why not stop the war? So, Mr. Leo, there is no way for anybody to win this war. Anybody who wants to win this war must put humanity first.
Okay, let me take some messages. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm Nya John Bosco from Yaoundé. I'm learning a lot from this topic. It's precious. Timben speaking. We, the citizens of the country, are losing because in the next future to come, which houses are the young ones going to stay? Which offices are we going to work in? What becomes of our lives in the Northwest and Southwest in the future? Good evening, Mr. Leo. For me, nobody is the winner or loser because we are fighting ourselves. Instead, the common man is the one suffering. The only winner is totally peace and justice. Ewuba Felix is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. May God deeply bless you for your good work. Mr. Liu, at times I ask myself some questions about Africa, if it's that we don't study or have a feeling on our own. Where will we, the youths of Africans, run to? Because out there, we are not safe in our own continent, even in our own country. We are not still safe. Africa, why? Why can't our leaders stand for us, seeing or even show us some love, at least, okay? Good evening, Mr. Leo. Everyone who declares war against another is a devil in human flesh. You can never win a war as an oppressor because the blood of all the innocent death will haunt you and your generations in all forms. A greedy warrior remains a slave forever. Life is a cycle. no kingdom reigns forever except the kingdom of God. Agbotambe is writing from Douala. Now, I want us to be specific. You can join us. Yes, but I want us to be specific. Can the non-state armed groups, I want all of us to talk on this, can they win this war?
We shouldn't mince words, and I think we should not be emotional likewise. Firstly, we need to understand that war is expensive. And what is very outstanding is that unlike you would have heard the Al-Shabaab, the PKK, the LRA, the list of different militia groups can go on and on and on and on. I could list about 200. And what you need to note is, at the end of the day, with the support they have, they will barely still make it to a particular stage. What am I saying? War is expensive, and it is very impossible for you to win a war if you do not have the requisite amount or armory on the ground. I want to dip a little into the ongoing war in Ukraine. Yes, Russia is all-powerful. She is the second biggest military in the world, with recent ammunitions on the ground. Yet, since the 24th of February 2022, we are in July. We will soon be moving into the 24th of July. That would have made 6 months already. And they cannot openly say that they have won with the biggest army they have. So, how do you expect a group or a people that doesn't have a budget or a regular source of weaponry that they can stand the other with? And this is where I come to say that for the fact that the loser of a war is the winner because he has more to save than the winner and more to manage than the winner, it is only wise enough for us to understand that war needs money. And I want to say this, Mr. Leo. We all know that at a particular point in time, there wasn't what we know today as kidnappings. And as it is, in my years of studying conflict, in my years of understanding what happens with such conflict, the moment you begin hearing about kidnappings, then know that somebody is constrained financially and the person does not have the means to sustain himself in a war front or in a battlefront. So I think it is but obvious that if you are talking about somebody who doesn't have a regular budget, like I did say yesterday, countries will vote and vote their defense budget. And this is the budget they will use. That budget is what they are going to buy. They will recruit, they will train, they will go for weapons, they will send others for studies in line with what they are doing. And they will also make certain diplomatic moves within that same budget to galvanize support to get some persons on their side. So war is expensive. I think from there, the question is answered by the fact that all the things enlisted and said, one can deduce where such a war can lead such a party. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, speaking in parables here, is this war winnable by the separatists?
You see, Mr. Leonard, the concept of war is birth. Why we are using arms now is an idea. And I remember, Mr. Leonard, when I was in primary school and secondary school, every 1st of October, we will just find some people being rounded up and locked up. And as naive as we were, we'll ask, why will they be catching some people on the 1st of October? It dawned on some people until 2016 that, hey, there was an Anglophone agenda or the separatist agenda which has brought us to this particular current crisis. So to the separatists, they will tell you they have made advancement. Advancement in the sense that, okay, we were first of all trying to pass across our message in terms of ideas. Now we are defending ourselves. And one of the things we need to understand is that it is an idea that people have. And one of the things which when you sell to people and they are able to grab it, they can run with it for life is called hope. And it is that hope that the separatists sold to a lot of Southern Cameroonians in 2016. Because remember, when the Agwabala and the consortium actually declared that there was going to be Monday Ghost Town, over the months, the instructions were obeyed across the board. Nobody was forced to say, okay, you will go out. There was solidarity from East, from every dimension of the Southern Cameroons. Why was it that? Because the people saw that, hey, for once, we have a people that are able to defend our aspirations. Therefore, in the subconscious of every Southern Cameroonian is a mindset of wanting to become the best of who he or she is in this God-so-blessed country. And so when you say, okay, can they win the war? The hope is there will come a day for them to have their own country. And I believe some of them who have been threatening us and calling us all sort of names are like, why do you want to advocate for building a united but not uniform Cameroon and not instead of galvanizing resources so that we can build our own country? And I tell them, I don't work in that dimension. So there are people who are bent, who have told you, if it has for me to die, believing that this thing can work, I'm willing to give my life. Because one thing people fail to understand is, a lot of us have reasons to live. But until you have found a purpose to die for, you are not worth living. And to some of them, this is a purpose for them, and they are bent on passing on that information across the board. So even if right now, the state forces are able to suppress it, my recommendation is let there be equity in Cameroon. That is what will kill the mindset of the extremists to be able to say, okay, now we have peace. But if we continue in the trend which we are currently having of, okay, let's just try to appease them, let's give them the impression we are doing something and not do it, the next generation, in fact, the challenges we have now will be more in the years to come. Why? Because the people are being conscientized, and the days, as the days are going by, they are developing strategies. Who would have told you, Mr. Leo, that Southern Cameroonians abroad can be able to donate and contribute money in millions to buy guns to kill other Southern Cameroonians or kill other Cameroonians? So it's a call for concern for us to know that both at the level of the state and both at the level of the non-state armed group, nobody can win the war. Because it's a matter of an idea. And one of the things, if I need to take inspirations from the scriptures, which says the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God for the pulling down of stronghold. Which means that spiritual battles are not fought with arms, conventional arms. So as far as the idea of the Southern Cameroonian individual thinking of having equity in this God-so-blessed nation is concerned, you can't kill that idea with a gun. You can only be able to put in place principles that will enable them come to a place and say, thank God, I am able to become all that I'm supposed to become in my own nation. It's very important, Mr. Leo, for us to know that in as much as we are, people, they are defending themselves, their idea is, I'm doing self-defense. And one of the things I said maybe in one of the programs, I think that was on Monday, that a young man asked one of his pastors and said, Pastor, do you please encourage me to go and learn the art of self-defense? And the pastor said, wow, that's good. He said, I learned that while I was still a youth. And he asked the pastor, did you learn karate? The pastor said no. He said, did you learn taekwondo? The pastor said no. He said, then what did you learn? He said, well, I learned the Solomon system. And then the young man asked, what is the Solomon system? And the pastor told the young man, the Solomon system is written in the pages of the scriptures in the first verse of the 15th chapter of Proverbs, which says, a soft answer turneth away wrath.
Grievous words.
A soft answer turneth away wrath.
Okay.
This particular crisis we find ourselves in can turn The other way around, if we decide to speak humanely to one another.
Okay. Stanisius Kemasap, good evening to you. Ngong John. Mark Bongaman, good evening to you. Nango Felix Ni Abakwa. And to you, Julius Chofo. We're talking about the possibility of winning a war. Now, we already discussed about the interest of the people, and almost everybody established here that the people have been kept aside, their interest has been kept aside. But now, can you win a war without the complete support of the people? Is it possible?
I want us to go down memory lane. Within First World War, the number of soldiers who were killed is more as compared to the number of civilians. But with the advent of the Second World War, the number of civilians killed is more than the number of soldiers killed. And taking down to crises and wars within the late 60s, 70s, right up to 2000s, the number of civilians killed more than the number of combatants actually killed. Then comes your question, who wins war? Is this war winnable? Now, in conflict, we have two variables that we use when we are talking about wars. The first is winning the war, and the second is winning the peace. Now, there is a war, and there is the peace. Now, the war in the conflict is both sides exhibiting their strength in terms of armor and in terms of resistance. Now, in terms of winning the peace is when you actually go to the core as to why they are fighting and see how you can get them a win-win-win. Yes, in this current conflict in Cameroon, both sides can win the peace, and only one side can win the war. Winning the war in this context simply means that the state can decide to neutralize all the separatist fighters as well as their surrogates, but they have won the war, but they have not won the peace. Now, the peace in it is, what peace are we talking about? We're talking about justice. We're talking about equality. We're talking about equity. We're talking about fairness, and we're talking about accountability. Now, when you have a conflict like this, the important part of a negotiator or conflict resolutor is to help both sides to see how they can win the peace. And if you want to get both sides to win the peace, the first thing you must do is that you must enable them to understand that they cannot on their own win the peace while breeding hatred, divide, and while also promoting pride and arrogance. What we face in Cameroon is not different from what was faced in South Africa, logically, in terms of the racial discrimination of the by the white minority over the black majority. But you see, when Nelson Mandela came out of prison, he won apartheid, but he did not win the peace of South Africans. The peace of South Africans was the injustice that the South Africans have been crying in terms of equity, equal distribution of resources, and power of economy back to the blacks. That was not given. And that's why today you see that the South Africans have the tendency of xenophobia, and they tend to see all those foreigners as coming to take their jobs. Even someone who has not gone to a medical field, see a foreign doctor like someone who has come to take his job. Even someone who is not a nurse, but see someone, a trained nurse, like someone who is coming to take the job. In this context of Cameroon, in this context of the Northern and Southwest region, where do we go from here? The government can win the war, but the government need to win the peace. The essence is winning the peace. And how should the government win the peace? The first thing is to establish a truth reconciliation committee.
Yeah, that will come. My problem is we have people living within the Northwest, people living within the Southwest. Can you win the war without the backing of these people?
You cannot win the war without the backing of these people. The reason is simply because I said something last time on Monday that there is a third side in this conflict. Over the years, people have just focused on just the government and the separatists, but there is a third side. And the third side of the people, that is people who are affected directly or indirectly by the action of A and B, are active combatants in the conflict. They are the third side. And for you to win the peace, you must work with this third side. And how do you work with this third side? Instead of promoting arrogance and pride, you have to sow the seed of unity, peace, and reconciliation. Now, the people has a key role to play to get you to win the war. How? In terms of giving you information, in terms of also helping you to plan your strategy, in terms of helping you to give you trajectory. Now, in terms of how this conflict started, remember, when the separatists came into picture, it was our boys You hear the word that were used, our boys, and they were moving to the street, to the market. You hear mother would say, our boys, soldiers, soldiers. As time went on, atrocities started coming in. They started fighting against the people. You started hearing the word, the boys, the boys, the boys. Now, kidnapping intensified. Paying of money for you to go and bury your loved ones became the order of the day. It started, the word changed from the boys to those boys, those boys, those boys. Now, as the deviant manner increases, and the ability of them not to even give concession to other parties, and the increased killing of blacklegism without justification has moved from those boys to the terrorists. Amber you start boys. Amber boys now, Amber boys them. So you are moved from our boys, the boys, those boys, Amber boys. Now, why all this is because focus has moved from the common man's interest to the personalism interest of we must be the person to control resources, and if you are either against us or you are with us. And this is very bad, because if you are fighting a war from personalism, as I explained last time in your program, is a concept I brought, which simply means that you portray a general face in terms of people that I'm fighting for you, but whereas in essence you're fighting for yourself, and that is occurring in both sides. The same thing for the government to win this peace. The government must put the people at the center.
Okay. Anytime war is chosen over peace, there are no wins. Yes, A or B might emerge winner apparently, but how many times do we sit back to think about the negative tolls that will live with us forever? On the aspect of who will win, I see no winner as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. For all I see is a guerrilla warfare with baseless aims of killings. We have focused so more in settling interpersonal disputes rather than the just cause. A lot of reflecting to be done. Scott Achanyi, writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Claude. Good evening, sirs. This crisis has become a way of making money from both sides, so I don't see any means of the crisis coming to an end anytime soon. Exodus is also writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Kum. I appreciate the position of the panelists on seat today. Anyone thinking he can win a war against the people is failing, but we should stop comparing the groups. The legitimacy is not same. Who has the mandate of the people, and what are you doing with it? If you can't protect and secure the people you took an oath to protect, you are a failure. Why and how did a socio-political crisis become a war? It was because someone failed to do what was right, and we are still keeping them there. Felix is also writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you in the studio. There is never a winner in a war between brothers and sisters. When egocentric people in both parties will keep their self-interest aside and put the well-being of the citizens as a priority, then peace will reign in the country. Yannick is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Yannick. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the rest of the team and crew. With war like the one we have in Cameroon, there is no winner because the losses are too much. If there should be a winner, then one party should say they are done with the killings and take a bold step to stopping this expensive fight draining young people in the northwest and southwest regions. Thank you, Madam Sali, for those powerful points. Sherifatu Kunyi, writing from Bamenda. Okay. Elvis Brown, writing from Shell New Bell in Douala. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to you all in the studio. Courage to you guys. Elvis Brown, watching from Douala. Thank you very, very much. Greetings, Mr. Liu. I think we should do our homework. Take a look at the majority, if not all, first world countries. We struggle to send our children there, okay? These countries fought serious wars, and there was a lot of casualties for them to be where they are today. War is painful, and I do not like war myself, but if that is what it takes for change to come. Okay, I'm a peace journalist. I don't subscribe to that. Sure, you should have engaged in the war so that their children will enjoy tomorrow, and not sit somewhere and be sending this message encouraging people to die to secure your tomorrow and that of your children. Madam Sally, we are talking about the people and possible success in war. Without the people, you say that they have not been considered, but can they win this war without the people on both sides?
Nobody can win the war without the people. Severally, even on this panel, we have spoken about people's power. The people's power is what matters. Because if you represent me, I should back you up in your leadership. Why do we have this repression, high-handed repression? It is because you know the people do not want what you're doing. Why do you have kidnappings? Why do you have labels? It's because the people in leadership understand that the feedback coming from the people does not validate their action. So what they do is to silence the people and not listen to them. I always ask people who fight the war in my country, what is your theory of change? Where's the people? Where are the people you're talking about in your fight? Because at the end of the day, when you say you are defending me, each time you take a step, you check with me whether it meets my desires and aspirations of you. Because what we have now is a polarized atmosphere of either you are with me or you are against my gun. So the people are not present in any space of it. So what I am saying is, you can kill as many persons as you want to kill. But the truth is, when the people do not accept you, you are not going to reign. Let us go back to where we started before we have a war. A group of people did not accept the governance system and felt left out in the way things were done. That is exhibiting what? People's power in accepting any existing leadership. So how do we think that over the years, we can now make decisions without the people endorsing our action? I want to say it categorically. It is the people or nothing. We can sit and say that we will kill, we will lock up people who say anything, we will kidnap them and ask for ransom, we are going to intimidate their families, we are going to put people into silence. But the truth is, the real governance goes when the people accept it, they support those who are in leadership, and work together for a better country. So, Mr. Liu, if we want to make progress in the Northwest and Southwest, let us put the people first. What do they want? Because the truth is, people of the Northwest and Southwest have a problem. The government system, they are not satisfied. But the question is, have they endorsed your strategy to address the issue of governance? If you are restoring independence, is your strategy of restoring independence resonating with the people? Is everybody of the Northwest and Southwest out to restore independence? Have you thought of people who think otherwise? If you are defending state sovereignty, is the strategy you are using people-centered? So what I would say, Mr. Liu, in all of this, put the people first and win the war.
Put the people first and win the war. Let us look at the winnability of a war. Do we see to count the weaponry, the human resources, and other factors that has to go along the fighting of the war? In the beginning, it looks so exciting. But do we imagine that winning a war would require enduring so much heat and pressure for a very long time, and they need to recruit more personnel?
Like you did put it, winning a war would have required all of that. What is unfortunate is that at the end of the day, there will still not be any winner, an exact winner. If one were to base on that context, you know, at the beginning of this, in the Northwest and Southwest regions, what the people did see was a bad governance. They saw themselves left out, which was very visible. They saw themselves not having the opportunity for their voices to be heard, which was very visible. And some persons felt like it was time to, why not come in and put up the people with the same pedestal with that of the state forces, that is, the non-state armed groups. And what is unfortunate is the non-state armed groups, the communities that got themselves involved in the days of our boys, the boys, and the Amber boys, did not consider all of this at the beginning. Mm-hmm. They never sat on the table to understand the economics of it, because if they knew the economics about this, then they would have understood that the economy could not permit where they are. And because of this, we find ourselves where we are. And this is the most difficult part, especially to the ordinary Anglophone Cameroonian. It's very difficult to accept that these losses that we are making, they give us reasons to say, yes, we are losers rather we are winners. In the sense that once you cannot make certain profits, you cannot count this. See, we watch on social media how they'll brandish the guns they will take when they get the military down. And the vice versa. You see the military brandishing the weapons they claim to have recovered. You know, the military is talking about recovering the weapons which the non-state armed groups perhaps got it through the killing or the bringing down of the state forces. And when the state forces, once they win, they want to brandish it also to tell the people that we have recovered all of this. Madame Salih said something very remarkable. Your strategy in place, be it A or B, does not resonate with the people. It is a reason why the people do not find it very comfortable when they sit on Mondays, and sometimes they are raided or bundled up when they sit in their small corners to relax, or within ordinary days, they are either bundled up by Camp A for sitting and relaxing, or Camp B for enjoying while they are suffering. So you see, the common man who did not actually take stock, who did not consider all of this, is the one suffering. So please, that particular arm or that body, that dead body of that person you brandish, that this is the person, because you want to also put up another aspect of war, which is propaganda, that your enemy should see that you are making some gains, whereas these are not gains. The only gain you make in a war is when you refuse going into it, or you call it off when you are already in it.
Okay, when you are already in it, how do we get the interest of the people in this war? How do we come to understand that this war is not winnable and that we should change strategy? Should we sit back and start counting our losses?
Mr. Leo, Cameroonians remember when the government made a call some years back about the insurgents in the north, the fight against Boko Haram. Mm. A request was made for generous giving, so that the military can be supported, so that Cameroon can win the war against terrorism. I remember very well Cameroonians contributed across the board. Why did they contribute? They contributed across the board because the national interest was at stake. They saw an enemy invading their nation, so Cameroonians east and west of the Mungo contributed to fight against terrorism in the north. But since this crisis started, the government cannot make that appeal. Why? Because a fraction of the population is the victim, feeling that their aspirations are left out. So
there was something that was launched for the Northwest. There are persons who made donations.
They made donations
to support the
reconstruction.
No, not reconstruction. To support what the President of the Republic gave. We saw the Minister of Territorial Administration move to the regions to distribute. Yeah.
I'm talking.
Which was all about the reconstruction plan.
It's the aspect of reconstruction.
It was
Humanitarian aid.
Yes.
Yes. What I'm talking here is.
But some persons also.
Yes, my take is, if governance is for the people and the interests of the people, it means each time we allow any Cameroonian blood to be shed, the blood should be justified on the basis that, okay, he is defending an invader, not that there is a domestic issue and we are using the military. Remember, Mr. Leonard, yes, it was the first one that was sent to the field were the police. After the police, the gendarme. And then after the gendarme, the military. And the tendency is that the government says we have not declared any war, but give me a break. Who are those who fight wars for governments? It's not the police, it's not the gendarme, it's the military. So each time the military moves, the language is that we are out to maintain order by force. And as such, that is government's right. They call it droit d'état, comme on dit en français. It is government's right to want to maintain order. But as I said earlier, each time you maintain order by force, there is a signal that is given that you are deficient of appropriate wisdom in resolving a problem. And then the momentary peace that you intend, that you have had because you have used force, has not been able to affect the psyche of the person. The person who is obeying you is like, okay, I'm obeying you because you have a gun. I'm obeying you because you can harm me. It's like one teacher told the student, kneel down. If you don't kneel down, I will flog you. And the student, seeing the whip, knelt down, but told each other that while I am kneeling with my knees on the floor, in my heart I'm standing up. Which means that you've succeeded to help him kneel, but you have not had the opportunity to have his mind renewed.
That is winning the peace.
That is winning the peace. So it is important for governments to know that, listen, this is my taker. I want Cameroon to win, not the government or the non-state actors to win. I want Cameroon to win. And for Cameroon to win simply means that the aspirations of the common man are taken into consideration.
A win-win.
A win-win. And so it is very important that we note that it is the common man who is the victim. Unless, for crying out loud, the reason why we're having this conflict is simply because we have not exalted righteousness in state affairs. And I'm very convinced as a Christian that even as scripture says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. We are where we are because we have decided to keep ourselves away from the principles of God.
Okay.
And we need to have peace of mind for us to be able to share peace, because you cannot give what you don't have.
Okay.
Those who are advocating for the war to continue lack inner peace.
Okay.
And so they think that it's a way of satisfying them to say that, oh, I'm dominating them. But no, as I said earlier, you can only win, the best war you can win is the war against self.
Okay.
And that is being able to know that I have defeated myself on trying to put myself ahead of others, but giving others the opportunity, even as scripture says, esteem others better than you.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. This war can never be won by any of the sides. Cameroonians have been dying for all the sides, civilians, armed men, and regular forces. The present war will only be won by peace and justice through generational change in a few years. Remember that there was no armed group in 2016, but only a common front against injustice. So injustice alone will make a difference. Linus is writing from Mboumien. Stop calling, please. Madam Sally? Is Madam Sally there?
I am.
Okay, Madam Sally, when we get what almost everybody is writing from those watching, they are very clear that this war is not winnable. Are those leading this war not aware of this reality? What are they counting on to think that they're going to win?
The truth is, if you look at the dynamics since the war started, the social media drama, the propaganda, and all the news, people are now using their teeth to count their tongues. That's why more of their tongue to count their teeth, I beg your pardon. But now the real issue is you find people blaming others rather than taking responsibility, which I interpret as a clear sign of losing. Because if you have a strategy, you will not spend your energy on others. You will spend your energy on rolling out the plan. If it is a liberation, you will spend your energy on rolling out your liberation plan and winning the war. So what I have to say is, physically, where we are, I believe strongly that every leader is aware that this war cannot be won. Yes, we can use firepower. Bring in more soldiers, bring in more armor cars, raise more money, more dollars, pounds, and euro to fund the war, to get foot soldiers. But when we look at the politics of the war, the geopolitics of the war, where ammunition and all of these things are sold, we know that it is evident that nobody will win this war by firing the gun. That one is clear. But now let's agree that in the event that the geopolitics of the war, where the Super Five or the big powers call the shots, there is support here and there, solidarity, following humanitarian laws, and all of that, the war comes to an end with the government of Cameroon emerging victorious. Then we know that the physical action of violence has been stopped, which one of the panelists says winning the war as in the literary term of a war. But the question is, has the ideology or the worries of the people been won? Is it stopped forever? No, it is not. So I want to say that each time, if the government comes out and declares that the situation is under control, it is because the government knows the situation is not what it is supposed to be. For how many times will you come out and say the situation is under control, and we keep seeing corpses, we keep seeing people dying? When we hear the separatists saying, we are winning fatly, and each day they still come out to blame faction A for being a traitor, faction B for being a black leg. Each day there is a drama, then that tells you that it is clear that nobody is going to win this war, and all the leaders are aware. I will end this by saying that where we are right now, every faction needs to go back to the drawing board and re-strategize. We are where we are because people are using a lot of grammar, high-sounding language to cover their inadequacy in leading a war. Because if we look at the history of war, people work with strategies, not with high grammar and basic blaming and accusation. Seated in the studio low, you will receive messages saying that you are a black leg, that you are selling out the struggle. You might be accused by the state of funding terrorism because of the programs you run. But is that where the war lies? It is about the strategy, what you are bringing on board. It is about making people comfortable. Because where we are, we can agree that, I speak for Bamenda, people are not satisfied with the way the military run things. People are not satisfied with the way Amber boys run things. Like the other panelists said, we are no longer talking about our boys. We are no longer talking about the struggle. The question is, you leaders who claim to lead us, are we still really talking about the struggle? That it was the people's struggle? Are we still talking about the God-ordained revolution? Or we are talking about show of shame, where we talk about thousands of dollars that has been embezzled, where we insult people and talk about their privacy, rather than discussing ideologies and ideas about liberating the people? Are we looking at the government who tells us that the situation is under control, and the next minute, thousands of persons are dying, hundreds of people are dying, or a good number of persons are dying, and thousands being displaced? I would say that each leadership is aware of the fact that this war cannot be won, and they need to do something different.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Leo. Please, the writings indicating the topic for the past 1 week is always blur. Can something be done about that? Mr. City is writing, Sati is writing from Boya. I hope you got the message. Eli, please work on that. Mr. Leo, what we as a people are going through is the consequence of what we hope to achieve. How I wish the regime in Yaoundé was like the UK's, where when people express the desire to self-governance, they are given a referendum. Go back and watch us on the streets of Bamenda and Boya on September 2nd, 2017 and October 1st, 2017. You would have answered your question on what the people's interest is. We chanted, okay? If you do not understand, ask. We do want, okay? Can the situation, the crowd that came out in Boya and across the Northwest and Southwest in 2017, can that crowd actually still come out today? I think are we still talking from that prism?
They cannot.
I want persons who are working, who are living in that. But you are going to come in first, and then he also coming. Yeah.
They cannot come in again because a lot of water has gone down the bridge. Because if you look at when they came in, there was no guns, and so there was nobody like Blackleg. There was nobody like public agent. There was nobody like a traitor, all those kind of things. They were in unison. And also the people who were coordinating at the time had one common front. But today, they are divided. You have so many fractions. And that is why you see that it will be very difficult for these people to come. For example, how do you get somebody who took up, who was on the street on September 22nd and advocating against injustice, and that same person had one of the brother killed by a separatist fighter accused of being a blackleg? How do you expect that same person to move to the street? How do you expect somebody who has a cousin or a mother who is dead and want to go and bury the mother in the village, and you impose a fine that family must pay 500,000 before that corpse is actually buried in the village? Do you expect that person to move to the street? Of course, no. How do you expect a situation where people are caught because of the fact that they are working in a particular parastatal? Their hands are chopped off, and you expect them, their friends, their partners, to move to the street in favor of you? How do you expect a situation where children are caught just because they want to go and get education? They are stripped off naked, they are paraded on the street, and you expect their parents to get to the street to march in favor of you? Of course, it cannot happen. And there is something that I said from the beginning, and I will say it here. When you go down to the street of Northwest and Southwest region, you interview 10 people, 8 will tell you, we want PEAC. We need peace. We need peace. And what is peace? Peace is the inner mindset where ideologies do not conflict, where ideologies look at a common front. They will tell you they want peace. They will not tell you they want federation. They will not tell you they want separation. They will not tell you they want decentralization. They will tell you they want peace. And where does peace strive? Peace can best strive on the ground of justice. And where is justice? Justice can best strive of equality, equity, trust, and forgiveness, reconciliation. As trees need oxygen and fertilizers to grow, so peace, that the people who tell you they need it, need justice as a ground, and justice need fertilizers, and the fertilizers are equality, equity for it to establish.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm Jakame Gerard Rinda, writing from Douala. Mr. Leo, the fact is that no party is going to win this war, and both parties are not ignorant of this. Both parties are making huge sums of money from this war and will only stop when the clock ticks to 0. One thing I know is that they are all going to pay for their sins. Nobody is bigger than God. Yes. Can you first react to what I first said, but also to this which clearly states that almost everybody is aware of the fact that this is not winnable, but are interested in the money?
Yes. If you go back to the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon today, every household has faced the high-handedness of the non-state armed groups and the state forces. When I say every household, I mean it. Now, when the raids are done, in the name of searching for amber, everybody is put in a situation that is not right. The people's rights are violated. Now, how do you explain that because I did not accept with you, my own niece who worked with CDC has her fingers cut off from CDC. My own younger brother has 3 fingers cut off because he did not accept what? Because they are today fugitive. Mr. Leo, I run a rehabilitation center, and what you need to note is that when I sit sometimes with some of the children and I watch them, especially those that are coming from the hinterlands, I weep because if you follow their mindset, this is telling us that if this thing should continue for 2 years more, then like I said, the social fabric that is broken, we will not even be able to recover it within the next 50 years. So what is most important for us to note is that the people are not longer into this as they were. Now, what they were into was not the arm. What they were into was the outright cry for the marginalization, the underdevelopment, the non-inclusion of in the day-to-day policies which they received that enclaved their areas, which I will still weep for Akwaya, because imagine that the intertribal conflict or the intervillage conflict that took place in Akwaya, where the non-state armed groups leveraged on it, where they also ignited it, or other things came into being. Imagine that that area had a good road network. Then the forces that were needed to be on the field to easily calm down the situation, like we had it in the north, where when the 2 tribes in the north came out fighting, the Musgum and the Arab Shuas, when they came out fighting, we saw how the military was prompt, the Cameroon forces was prompt to be there. They went there on time because they had a road, the access was so much. So the people understand that all of these enlisted things are still existing. But if you talk about the arm being the source through which they'll bring order to their current existing problem, no. But this does not mean that the government, who is the employee by the people, because the people do employ the government, not the other way around. The government is there because the people did give them that legitimacy in 2018 and said, constitute a government to manage the country, to manage the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. So what the government needs to note is that the people who gives you that mandate says they want road. And you have observed, as we have all observed, in areas where the military understood the civil-military relationship to boost on it, we are seeing how it is moving the day-to-day of that particular area, of these areas, are unlike they used to be. This is because that communal lifestyle, that lifestyle of the military, not seeing the civilian always as though they are, because they are brothers of and sisters of the non-state armed groups, which is true, but it doesn't make them to become victims. I live in an area where sometimes the military, they are quick to attack you, ce sont les enfants, ce sont les frères de Amber. Now, that picture alone makes the people to always be afraid, because at the end of the day, when they want to make a positive move, when such a statement comes up, bearing in mind that Amber is an outlaw group, once that statement comes up, the people are always caught in cold because they are afraid. So those things, the state forces and the government needs to respect the people also on the ground.
Good evening. The only person who wins a war is the one that sells guns and bombs. Ngale is writing from Boya. Good evening. Mr. Liu, Mario Gomez writing from Misaje. What do the people suggest we do about the matter? Okay. I don't know. Good evening, Mr. Liu. And the rest of the team and crew. With war like the one we have in Cameroon, there is no winner because the losses are too much. If there should be a winner, then one party should say they are done with the killings and take a bold step to stopping this expensive fight, draining young people in the northwest and southwest regions. Thank you, Madam Sali. Okay. I'm sure you sent this message twice. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and your panelists. I think separatists winning the war is out of agenda, but they are out to pass a message for the government to take the right actions that is required. Kome is writing from Abonaberi. Good evening, sir. There is no solution in conflict, but more trauma. The solution lies in pen work and not guns, and most of all, prayers. Good evening. I like your program for today. God bless you all. Frank is writing from Kumba. Mr. Leonard, good evening. I'm not an expert in crisis, but for what I know is that if you allow a revolution to this level, what do you expect? The worst may come if we don't take care. But that's not my prayer. For example, in Mboumien, the government has started catching motorbikes for reasons nobody knows, and not sending more boys to the bush in doing this. Let us go back to the drawing board and satisfy the people. I rest my case. Jaboy is writing from Mboumien. Now, is it also, can we conclude that ego is also keeping some persons to actually see a reality in the situation on ground? Because if 90% of the people who are writing from the ground say this war is not winnable, why waste time, energy, resources, and everything?
Like you said, Leonard, is ego, and the fact that why should I accept that I am wrong? Somebody said to err is human and to forgive is divine. It means that it is natural within the framework of human existence for people to make errors. And the errors that we make should not take us to the level where we actually are wasting an entire generation. You talked about the aspect of the population actually not feeling like the other two panelists talked about the aspect of the population caught in between as far as the crisis is concerned. One thing which I want our esteemed public to know is that Cameroonians are crying. And for how long should we continue to cry before the powers that be take the measures? For you to accept that I did what is wrong, one thing we should know is that we can only cover the truth, we cannot kill it. This crisis is a product of a lie that has been told over the years. Because what is the ideology and the mindset of a southern Cameroonian? You ask the question, can they walk to the street again today? The fact that they cannot walk to the street does not mean that the problem has been solved. What was their concern? Their concern was two brothers came together in 1961. And when they came together, the agreement was we are coming together to build a wonderful country. At the end of the day, the older brother felt that since he has age, he has number and all of that, he can be able to dominate and actually marginalize against the younger brother. The younger brother says, I can't take this in my father's house. And that ideology has been in the subset of every southern Cameroonian. So if you ask them today that, okay, we should vote and decide the kind of country you want in giving them a referendum like you talked about in Britain. Do you know why the government was afraid to allow the Cardinal Tumis Commission, to all Anglophone Conference to hold? The reason was simple. Because these people will have the legitimacy to talk with government. They will have the mandate to be able to defend the aspirations of the southern Cameroonians. So government was like, hey, if we allow this thing happen, it means that we'll now be wanting to talk with people who are saying, I have a mandate to talk with you on this particular matter. The reason why government does not want to dialogue with the so-called separatists is because they don't have a mandate from the people. And so the truth of the matter is government knows what to do. We can't continue telling ourselves a lie. That no. Cameroon is one and indivisible. Praise the Lord. That's true. We are a united nation, but we are not a uniform nation. The very foundation of this nation is for us to be united, but not uniform. And if we get this message across the board, we will be able to give everybody his place. So that we don't get shedding human blood along the line in the name of trying to maintain a form of a state that does not warrant that does not meet up with the aspirations of the Southern Cameroonians.
That is for government.
Yes. I'm coming for government.
Yes, but Sally has to talk before we end.
I just wanted to say that I know the government is saying our mandate is decentralization. If you want to change a form of government or form of state, go into elections, win elections, and then propose that to the Cameroonian population
so
as a mandate.
You think that there is ego on the part of government?
It is ego on the part of government, likewise the separatists.
Okay.
Mr. Liu, I think since we are talking to the world and Cameroonians, I want us to situate the war again. Again, I say as a negotiator, the war can be won, but the ideology and the interest cannot be won with guns. Why do I say so? The military duty is to fight a war. The president's duty is to win the peace. Look at Iraq. When the US entered Iraq, they had the ideology to win the war against Saddam. But the peace, they did not win the peace. That's why I see Iraq is highly divided. But they don't have that kind of Saddam of a leader. But it's highly divided. Go to the same situation in Libya. The ideology was to win the war of Gaddafi, but not to win the peace. Look at Libya now. It's highly divided and highly, we have hatred, division, and kind of. In Cameroon now, the military, I will tell you that to a certain extent, they have been able to win the war in some localities because there have been a kind of normalcy in other localities that we could not go. But have they won the peace? No. Instead, we have more people with hatred, bigotry, divide, and the more is coming, which means that in the next future, we'll still have the war again that will resurrect. So they can win the war, but you cannot win the peace with guns and bullets. How do we win this peace now? Because like I said, if you go to any locality in Northwest or Southwest, they will tell you, we want peace. We want peace. They will not tell you about form of any state. We want peace. We want to go back to our village. We want to do this. We want to do that. And we want to do that under what condition? They will tell you that under the condition that Menchu 4 made a camp for electricity. This one they should come and tie it. This one they should come and tie it. That is the justice now, which are peace that they want, who grow on it. Okay. So we should preach that the government that be, the separatists that be, should understand that if you are fighting for, you should go back for the justice. You should go for winning the peace. And if you get the people to win the peace, I can tell you that the people will be in your favor. Look at communities that the military have been able to have civil and military cooperation with. It's moving effectively. And look at communities that even the so-called separatists before, in those days, were able to have their cooperation with. It was difficult for the military to penetrate. But now look at now they have lost that cooperation. The military can easily get into their den, get out at any time. Now, how do we win the peace? We can win the peace by deciding to look at justice, equity, and fairness.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Late, but one thing I would say is that this crisis is a product of lies over the past years. The separatist fighters have no strategy because it's all selfish interest. Each party is putting in. Lionel is writing from Simbok in Yaoundé. Good evening, panel of the House. Mbowo Shela Ngechop writing from Boya. I believe the Southwest and Northwest will win only when they join together to beg for God's mercy and cry they will win. It is true. Southwest and Northwest are suffering, but they are going the wrong way. Thanks for the program. Our lovely Cameroon is so blessed. Accept that you are a Cameroonian and God will bless everyone. If Nigerians and other countries in Cameroon are making it, we can make it with hard work, prayers, and love for our neighbors. Thank you, Mbowo Shela. Hello, nothing could be more foolish than what one of your speakers said moments ago. It's not true that the guy with the mustache of weapons wins a war. Tell him about Vietnam. The US had everything in that direction and deployed all except nuclear weapons. Secondly, the gorilla is far the long. Okay. I may not read all of what you are writing.
Let him also look at the other side. I say win the war, but and it's not. It were not the peace, and it's not the fact that US did not win Vietnam, but they won other wars like Iraq and the war.
Okay. Greetings to you all in the media. To the end, the Anglophone crisis is to host a true and genuine dialogue by the head of state without any rejection and opposition of other groups' opinions, like the proposal of separation as compared to what the head of state did last dialogue. Okay, Clinton is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Clinton. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Applaud your team. Keep saying it even if no one hears it. God who is on the throne will hear it. This question is bothering me now for long. I see separatists dying as well as military. Is it compulsory that when you become a soldier, you just obey and do anything, even when it's wrong? Jean is writing from Yaoundé. Yes, you must obey. Hello, good evening to you all. Sir Romanus is writing from Mancon. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Amos writing from Bamenda. The military have derived another strategy in Bamenda now by seizing motorbikes and taking them to their office without issuing any convocation or even telling you where exactly they are taking them for. Okay. Diodune is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Diodune. This one says, greetings to all in the studio. As a Christian, I know the devil is winning. One thing that baffled me is that the original problem that led to this endless war is still waiting for the solution on the table. Consider one side surrender now. The intellectual of both parties will still go back into the drawing board, and if not favorable, the opportunities, which are the two parties that love war, will still go for war. The earlier we stop the war, the better. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. If we be no, say na so this war go day. Better therefore transfer Sonara and the other resources we are no for okay than for loss waiting way we don't lose them.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that is something to hammer on. Now you can clearly see that that writer, that viewer, is already telling you that there was no pre-calculation with regards to the ongoing war, especially
we did not know that thousands of persons were going to die.
Nobody knew about that.
And
so
the longevity.
And the longevity, because when war comes, precision in terms of time is never set. You go for your ego, like my brother says. You go for your ego, and everything about it is you want to hit it. So I think it is time for the people to go back to not the drawing board, as some persons may want to recommend, to sit back and say, you have won, but bear in mind that you who gives up, you are the winner. And as we all know, it will be of great honor for you to say, no, you have won. We know persons who decided that you have won, and today they are not the way you see them. It is very difficult, but that is the truth, because that is what we need in today's life. It doesn't mean that the government should leverage on this and forget about her responsibility. I will still repeat, the government is an employee employed by the people. So only the people can cause the government to do what they want.
Okay.
A viewer talked about Vietnam. Of course, America decided to leave Vietnam because the Americans said, we no longer want war. They decided to leave. Americans left Afghanistan just yesterday. 2 days, I think 3 days ago, they celebrated 1 year anniversary of their moving away from Afghanistan. The Americans said it that they don't want that war in Afghanistan. So the people can decide that they don't want this. And we are seeing it. They have decided. In other communities, they are giving up the separatists. In other communities, they have decided to pick back their lives in the midst of the separatists. That is to tell you that the people do not want this because their opinion was not sought. I said it with my introduction. A questionnaire was not given out. Do you want war or not? It was not given out. Do you want arm in this crisis or not? It was not given out.
Okay.
So the people have right not to accept it at this time.
Okay. Good evening, sir. The topic of today is amazing. The things happening in the northwest and southwest Cameroon goes beyond the physical. This is Godlove writing from the west region. Okay, you are talking spiritual here. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panel. Can you invite our brothers and sisters in the Western world to appear on this media to convince Cameroonians why they want separation, because these have caused a lot of killings. For example, we of Pamol have been experiencing a lot of killings and kidnappings for ransom. So is this of help to the common man? And Mayuk Thomas writing from Mundemba, exactly what you just said there. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I wish to applaud you and your panelists for educating the Cameroonians indigenes on how to go about this harmful plague which has attacked us all in the name of Anglophone crisis. It's Mboumien Protus writing from Banga, Cam 1. Okay, Banga. Mr. Liu, both sides are the same, waiting for the Messiah like the people of old. Both sides have lost focus and professionalism. I'm Senjo Dio from Yaoundé. Okay, good evening to you. This one reads, okay, bilingualism can never exist in Africa, so we must end okay. Greetings to you there. I think that at the end of the day, someone will win the ongoing crisis in Anglophone regions, and somehow the so-called Amber Boys can win depending on their strategy. For example, in Afghanistan, the Taliban, who is a terrorist group, was able to send the government away, and to the government forces can also win depending on their strategy too. But finally, war is not good because it is the common man that suffers the most. Raphael is writing from Bafoussam. Good evening to you, Raphael. We are going to be ending here. We can read all the messages you've sent. Mr. Raymond, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leonard. But before we take leave of you, I just want Cameroonians to know that God has given us this nation, and it is time for us to tell the truth. We've been talking about reconciliation. We cannot reconcile if we ignore the truth. We cannot have justice without it being founded on the truth. And of course, the only truth that we can find, as far as our life is concerned, is the truth that we are able to apply from the principles of God's word. And if we do that, we'll be able to heal our land, be able to forgive one another, and we can be rebuilt again this God so blessed country. God bless you. And please don't forget to keep praying for Cameroon.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu. This war can be won only when peace will rule in between us. I'm writing from Banga. My name is Ewane. Fabrice, Mr. Liu. Getting the heart of minds of the people is by doing what the people want. There are no roads, no lights, no good water, and most importantly, no work for the youths. Okay? Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's Manzi Faith from Bamenda. This war is not winnable because the fighters on both sides do not take the opinion of the subjects at heart, and so they end up fighting for their selfish ambitions and putting the lives of the subjects at risk. Thank you for coming, Lucas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. You know, I am somebody who is determined to ensure that that child who never had the opportunity to go to school should get it today. It is on this that we decided to set up Rehabet. Like I keep saying, we have decided to give the open call for children to return to school, because one of the spoils of war is illiteracy, and illiteracy will breed poverty. So Rehabet says the doors of those who could not go to school, which were closed, we have decided to open our own doors, and we are calling on the communities to ensure that if there is a child who had not been to school, please send that child to Rehabet. It is for free, and we will give that child education. Of course, if you want to know where we are, you can contact Mr. Leo. But for those who already know where we are in my 16, behind the Baptist Church, providing education for all for free, because there is a need for these children to go to school.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. To you all in the studio, I believe fighting war is to gain common objective, but how relevant is that objective? The both parties know what they are doing. I call this war without end. If we want to make peace, we should start by rebuilding these nations by voting, changing the constitution. That is, each president should have a particular duration in power, not more than 80 years. This is Yannick Mbe Yaks writing from Great Support. Boya, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, and I leave our viewers with this quote of mine I brought in 2012, that the truth is God. You can only kill the teller and not the truth. If you kill the teller, the truth remains to haunt you. Let us win the peace and not the war. The peace will come with justice. Justice comes with nutrients, that is equity, equality, fairness, forgiveness, and reconciliation. Okay,
we want to thank Madame Sally Mboumien, who took part on today's edition of the program from Bomenda. We also want to thank you all who took time off to watch this edition of the program. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.